Hi, this is Bruce Rawles, and today I'm speaking with Myra Fidelman. And I've known Myra through her contributions online to A Course in Miracles for quite a number of years. And in the last few years, I've gotten to know Myra much better through Zoom meetings. And I always enjoy everything she contributes. And I thought, why not have a conversation about uh, the Course of Miracles as always, and then your path through it. So anyway, thank you for being here, Myra, and looking forward to our conversation. So
Well, thank you for asking me, Bruce. Yes. And then we have shared already many, many beautiful sessions together at the School for A Course of Miracles.
hmm
Well,
and
just,
also your excellent class that I attend on Thursdays, and I know you have one that's this little out of my time zone range on Mondays as well.
yeah, yeah.
And I'll post the links to those in
Oh,
the
that'll
post I
be,
make about this conversation. So
well, just to start at the beginning, it
sure.
was 1990. I met a man, and he was already a student of A Course in Miracles. And so he kept giving all these little citations, these little envelopes with papers, little citations. And
Yeah.
well, that got my attention. And then I bought the book.
hmm
And then it started. And what can I say? I went through all the changes I think that are very common. At least the first 15 years, I really thought Myra was studying the Course, that Jesus was talking to Myra, Myra was sleeping, and Myra was going to wake up. But, and after 15 years, thanks to Ken Wapnick, and especially, I'll plug his little book, that's my favorite one, Healing the Unhealed Healer.
hmm
Thanks to this book, I call this book my Wapnick Whopper because I don't know how many times I've read it. After 6 times, I stopped counting. Um, I learned all about the mind. And then Ken entered into my journey and has never stopped until this day and will never stop as being my teacher. And after those 15 years that I realized that I was a mind, thanks to Ken, that was a difficult period. That was what I would call, what Jesus calls the period of unsettling.
hmm
And we all go through that. Okay, this is not who I am. What am I? What am I doing here? How did the famous question, how did this happen? The question with no answer.
How did the
Everyone
impossible
asks that.
occur? I think
How did the impossible?
that adjective helps for me anyway.
Yeah, right. So I went through all of that. And well, I don't need to talk that much about my own journey, but just more about the Course and Ken's influence. So learning from Ken that it's all about the mind, that it truly is a mind training course. Everything is happening in the mind. Jesus is leading us back to the mind, get off the battleground, and get back up to the mind. And he's very clear about that, that Jesus is always addressing the mind, the decision-making part of the mind, that part of consciousness that's choosing between the right mind and the wrong mind. And unfortunately, we were having this automatic pilot all these years of joining with the wrong mind. But what the Course is doing now has made us very conscious that we have a choice. Luckily, we have a choice. So looking at your chart back there, the one side, instead of choosing the decision maker, always choosing for the ego, now we can choose for the Holy Spirit. And the chart we have to thank on Ken.
Yes.
It's it's so wonderful to have that. It starts there, the eternal truth like you have. And I love that first sentence that nothing real can be threatened. We'll go to the rest, but just that first sentence, nothing real can be threatened. Isn't that comforting?
hmm
Isn't that wonderful when you really understand it? Nothing real. God is, period. Nothing real can be threatened. We are experiencing here on the timeline of the dream, a dream of duality. It's not true. It's a dream. And nothing that happens here can affect in any way, has any influence on the truth, on reality. Nothing real can be threatened. And so that's on the top of the chart. And then it goes down to nothing unreal exists. Now, and that's where the dream begins. Looking at the chart behind you there. the split mind.
And the
And it's
things
so
of here
wonderful. And then
down.
it goes down to the classroom of the world. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I love that Ken taught me everything is now a classroom. This whole level here, the whole horizontal level, it's just a classroom. This is where the Myra figure will learn, well, what's upsetting this figure, what needs to be forgiven, what needs to be healed on the level of the mind. Because that's always what it's about, just about the level of the mind. So Ken was very clear about form and content. That we experience in the dream, we experience the form, but the content is always at the level of the mind. The cause is at the level of the mind. Forgiveness takes place at the level of the mind. All the corrections take place at the level of the mind. The miracles take place at the level of the mind. It's a mind course.
Yes, indeed. And as you're saying that, I was thinking, whenever I pick up the book, whether it's the physical course book or the online version, which I'm relying on more and more, um, try to remind myself, it's always and only about the mind,
Yeah,
as you say. Yeah.
yeah.
And as you were reading that, the first sentence of the introduction, nothing real can be threatened. I was thinking, well, that fits in beautifully with today's workbook lesson. There's nothing to fear.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There truly is
Oh,
nothing in truth to fear.
no.
In the dream that we've made up, there seems to be plenty of things to be fretting about and
Yeah.
for our dream figures to get all flustered with.
Yeah, and he writes that clearly in today's lesson.
Yeah.
If you still believe in illusions, then you will still be fearful.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
another way of looking at all of this, another way of looking at all these illusions, all these projections that we have made real, and they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to continue on, what I learned from Ken Wapnick, forgiveness. I love his description of forgiveness. It's very short, it's to the point, and very helpful. The right mind, there, Holy Spirit, is looking at the wrong mind, ego,
Hmm.
without judgment.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So simple, huh?
And for many years, we could all, yeah, what is forgiveness? Who's forgiving? What is forgiving? And of course, we get confused. We didn't know any better. Before the Course came, we all thought we were these bodies, these people, this personality, this world, this is my home. And then a blue book comes along and says, well, you might get a little upset now and then because that's not who you are. I'm going to tell you a different story, but you will be freed. I will free you from all the insanity that you are now believing. Lovely message from Jesus. So Ken's description of forgiveness is just so clear. He always has so much clarity.
Mhm.
And I
Absolutely.
love when he would give an example of when something upset him, and he would say, oops, I did it again. Oops. Oh, thank you, Ken. That's the shortest version of forgiveness I ever heard. Just oops. And I've had a lot of oops over the years, and I was always very grateful to Ken for the word oops. Yeah.
Yeah. And the oops kind of reminds me that the course makes a distinction that I remember when I picked up the course back in the mid 80s and I took the text, which was a separate book at that time, uh, for me anyway, up into the Sierra Nevada mountains in Northern California backpacking. And it just fit in my backpack for a trek in the mountains. And I remember sitting by this alpine lake about 10,000, 11,000 feet, reading for the first time the difference between sin and error. And it was like, wow, that changes everything because sin, which is ego's, basically propaganda that this horrible, uncorrectable mistake happened and there's nothing we can do about it, is the rebuttal to that the Holy Spirit provides is that nothing happened. And so it's correctable because if I'm dreaming, I don't have to repair a dream when I wake up. I just have to remember it's a dream. And in this world, if I'm identified with a dream figure, uh, that's going to be challenging. But if I can remember, like you've been saying, that and as our wonderful, illustrious teacher, Ken Wapnick, reminds us with such great clarity that we're merely dreaming. That becomes our way out, isn't it? Every specific thing becomes our classroom of
Yes.
forgiveness, and it's correctable. All those uh, feelings that seem to be uh, unresolvable and thoughts that are untenable become instantly, or at least gradually, depending on how fast we allow the correction, resolvable, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just made mistakes and we didn't
Yeah.
know we were making a mistake. I love that word. It's such a kind, gentle, loving word.
Hmm.
Jesus said, "Oh, little child, you just kept making mistakes. You didn't know you were making those mistakes." It's such a gentle course, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It,
Well,
it's
just
a,
getting.
it's a correction in the truth. I was thinking, flashing back on years ago, I spent a little time with my mom, giving some, basically positive thinking, kind of early New Agey kind of stuff, classes in prisons in a particular prison actually in Northern California, and they call the facilities correctional facilities. And I said, well, that's the ideal, isn't it? But we're all in the prison of our own making,
Yes.
that the Holy Spirit can correct by turning it into a classroom that says everything is forgivable here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great example. Yeah,
Yeah.
correction. Yeah. I'm looking again at the chart. Um, I'm also so thankful to Ken that he introduced that level one and level two
Hmm.
and made that distinction and put this chart together. Because when you really can accept his chart and get into it and understand the clarity that he has presented us with, it's so helpful. And I usually use one little lesson as an example, and that's lesson 248. And that lesson says, "What suffers is not part of me." A few little words, and he's going from level two to level one. What suffers can only be a form, can only be a finite form, a body in the world. Something is suffering. So that's level two, that's the finite form, but has nothing to do with me. And the me is not the body. The me is my true identity. The me is the spirit that I am. The me is the love that God created. So what suffers has nothing to do with me. And so to understand a lesson like that, and Jesus talks like that through the whole course. He's going from one level to the other, from one to the other. And I see that in the groups where we read together,
Hmm.
that many come and are confused because, is he contradicting himself? What's going on here? I said, no, let's look at it now through level one and two. And that always helps
Hmm.
when you can really describe that very good and explain that very well. That is so helpful. So thank you, Ken, for level one and level two and for the decision maker. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
love that. Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
another I think related concept that's just touched on briefly in lesson 136 is the double shield of oblivion, which
Mm,
addresses those levels. And
yes.
and the outer shield of oblivion would be represented in the chart behind me with the trying to point here. The prison of the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what we think of as the material physical world of space, time, and bodies, and yet that is really just a projection that exists in our mind, which even modern physics is sort of hinting at. In the last century, a lot of the people who birthed quantum mechanics and modern physics kind of became mystics almost of necessity when they realized that mind could no longer be separated from what we call the laws of the universe.
Yeah.
And but that universe really is, from the mystical perspective of the course, and really the pure non-dual perspective, it's always and only in the mind again. And so we're projecting our split identity onto what seems to be a split and fragmented world. Uh, and yet it's just one thing, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
and we confuse the levels by thinking that I have to fix the dream when I really just need to get back into my mind with the part of my mind that is sane. Because if I try to do it on my own as a divided identity, I'm just going to be further befuddled and fearful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then that leads into relationships, which is such a large topic. And Ken helped me with that so much. I will say it in a minute. When I first heard it, of course, it didn't resonate. I said, well, thank you, but I'm not there yet. But over the years, that has changed. I am so thankful. Very simple. Every special relationship, there's only one. A special relationship is the choice with the ego. The decision maker has a relationship with the ego that gets played out on this level here, on the earthly timeline,
Mm-hmm.
in so many forms, uncountable forms, that we get all confused and we think we're having thousands of relationships. When Ken said, no, there's one special relationship with the ego. And on the other side, there's one holy relationship with the Holy Spirit, where everything comes back to being one, oneness, total one. There is no other. There is only one. There's one Son of God. There's one dream. There's one ego. There's one Holy Spirit. There's one decision maker. There's only one. And this way, the word relationship gets a whole new meaning, because we learn our words from the ego. So we have relationships. There has to be more than one. A relationship always contains many. But the holy relationship, it's a relationship of one.
Mm-hmm.
And the only real true relationship, says Jesus, is that what we have with God, which we all share together as one, the one that we are. So that's another way that I always say, thank you, Ken Wapnick, because I finally got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that influences the way I experience my dream in a very helpful way. Now, to always remember, oh no, that's not outside of me. This is my mind again. I chose, maybe unconsciously for a moment, I chose the wrong teacher, and this is what I seem to be experiencing. It's a mistake. I made a mistake. I can choose again, and it can be forgiven. We can look at it now, the right mind again, can look at the wrong mind without judgment, and it will be forgiven.
That's it, isn't it? And
That's,
in the chart behind me, which is adapted from Ken's wonderful metaphysical chart,
yeah,
um, the ego, projects, and so that makes our perception. So there's that downward arrow that we, first of all, the ego likes to make separation real, which means we split up everything apart. Like you were saying, there's really just one relationship with the Holy Spirit that's true, but the relationship we have with ego says, I can't deal with this belief that I, you know,
no,
am responsible for this horrible separation, which of course didn't happen in truth. So we have to split apart and identify with a fragment and then project what we don't like on everything else. And so once the split occurs in the mind, we have to project that onto a fragmented world. But over here in the classroom, we basically, as you've been saying, if when we listen to Holy Spirit,
yeah,
we forgive our projections by looking at them
yeah,
without condemning uh, that craziness, and that basically brings us back to the mind where
yeah,
um, there's a peace that is our natural state that we thought we had forsaken, but Holy Spirit says, no, your relationship with everyone and everything is your way back if you forgive each seemingly projected part, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And we read that so much from Ken. Take your projections back.
Hmm.
Okay, you'll notice them. There'll be a thought, there'll be a judgment, and there'll be the colliding. I can't find the right word.
The
There'll be
rebuttal, the correction.
temptation. There'll be the
Oh, yeah,
temptation
okay, yeah.
to do something with that judgment, to project it. And that's the moment that we learn now, oh, I hear it because the blah, blah, blah is always going on.
Uh-huh.
And if I fall into the trap, then that's my moment. That's the moment I can choose. I hear it. I don't deny that I hear it.
Right.
But am I going to go to the holy instant now with this? Or am I going to project it?
Yeah.
And it's our choice. As he says at a certain point, yet the secret of salvation is this: you're doing it all. You're choosing it all. It's your choice.
Hmm.
So at a certain point, really never underestimate the power of our choices and the power of our thinking. Thoughts are everything. In the Course, a thought is everything. So powerful. Wow. Mind-blowing, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we thought we blew up our mind by choosing duality,
Yeah.
and yet the Course tells us that everything that's below this purple line, which is represents duality, is a dream that we can forgive and correct with Holy Spirit's help. Huh? Every specific thing, every special thing becomes a classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when they become happy learners, which I know is a topic that you like to emphasize, and rightfully so, because if we're not happy, it
Yeah.
means we've
Yeah.
been listening to the propaganda of the teacher of separation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I always loved that section, the happy learners. And everything develops in its own time, in its own way, and everyone's journey is a little bit different. That's not, you can't avoid that. But the groups now that I'm allowed to host, they just, I never planned anything. They just happened. And when I started with the Australian group, but many Americans were watching the videos. And yeah, but we're sleeping then. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. And can't you do this at American times? And one request came, and then two requests, and then five requests. And I said, Holy Spirit, is it time? Yeah, okay. And then where was I at that moment? Well, happy learner, a happy learner. I love that section. The Holy Spirit needs happy learners. And what is the happy learner? The happy learner says, yes. Yes, I did everything wrong. Yes, I've been miserable. It's been awful. I don't like this at all. But yes, I am ready now to choose differently. I am ready now to see differently. I am ready now, yes, to think differently. Yes, Holy Spirit, I am ready to take that step back and let you lead the way. Yes, I am ready now to really practice forgiveness, your forgiveness. You're doing it. It's your function. Myra thought she was doing something with forgiveness. No, 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 no. No dream figure can forgive. No, no, no. It's your function. But I now, as the conscious decision maker, I bring all my dark thoughts to you. And we look at them together. Again, looking together at the ego. That looking is so important. Always looking, looking, looking. And so the happy learner, gradually, step by step, the Holy Spirit takes you into call it then the happy dream. It's a dream, but the dream of forgiveness. And that's so different than when you're down on the battleground and you're trying to forgive something here. That doesn't work.
Mhm.
I think for years and years I was doing forgiveness to destroy without even realizing that was what I was doing. So those are lessons that you learn, and also thanks to Ken and his way of explaining forgiveness. And what happened also, Ken's way of helping to disengage from the identification with the ego. And what I loved so greatly was his story about being a puppet. I love the puppet story. The body is neutral. The body is just a puppet. It's like a Pinocchio just sitting on the bench,
Mhm.
doing nothing. It can't move, it can't do anything. But it has puppet players, and they're not neutral. The puppet players, that's where the thoughts are. Thoughts are never neutral. The puppet is neutral, but the thoughts are never neutral. And to be aware, who's your puppet player? And I love that story
There's
because
only two choices, right?
there are only two choices. Yeah.
That's the
And so
simplicity, isn't it? Yeah.
that's the simplicity of the Course. There's only two choices. That's
Mhm.
why sometimes Jesus says, my Course is not difficult. The ego, the resistance, can make it seem very difficult.
Mhm.
And because he's taking the life that we thought was life, putting it upside down, nothing stays the same. And so we all go through those moments, and that's okay because that's supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen. All the darkness has to come up that we
Mhm.
can look at it together. Again, the right mind looking at the wrong mind with no judgment. And learning after many mistakes Don't fix the ego, don't change the ego, don't fight with the ego, don't love the ego, don't listen to the ego. We only want to look at the ego. Well,
Mhm. Such a helpful insight, isn't it? I mean, to have that calm, peaceful, dispassionate objectivity to the truly insane absurdity of everyone's ego, which really
yeah,
is just my ego.
yeah,
If I'm seeing something that I think is craziness out in the world, whether it's under my roof or on the other side of the planet or anywhere in between, or could be another galaxy, I don't know. If there's something that seems crazy,
yeah,
that's my interpretation, and I have to at any given moment choose the ego's interpretation of everything, which is a very hopeless, depressing, discouraging perspective that says I'm here, and the Holy Spirit, which says, no, you've never been here. But you're an incredibly vivid dreamer. You have an incredible imagination, and you've made a photorealistic 3D holographic movie dream that seems real. And but like you were saying, the puppeteer is everything,
yeah,
and there's only two puppeteers, and
right.
they're both in our mind. Yeah.
And that was so helpful.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
also Ken's wonderful video workshop with sitting in the theater with Jesus and watching your puppet on the stage and just watch your life go by. And he said, well, that's the disaster that you're looking at. The miracle is looking at disaster and letting the mind know that's not true. But of course, that was misunderstood in many ways because being in the theater with Jesus is actually just symbolic of being in the right mind.
Mhm.
There are no bodies, no people sitting in a theater. Even in the mind, there are no bodies walking around, no forms. So it was all symbolic, but that was misunderstood greatly. But okay, whatever works at that moment. Sometimes we need something that's very earthly to help us along. And if
Mhm.
that's what helps at that moment, okay. But at a certain point, as Ken says, you can stay at the first rung of the ladder for a very long time. But it's always, I hope for everyone, you'll take the next step
Yeah.
and the next step and the next step and not stay at the bottom of the ladder. It's a very lovely metaphor, the ladder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was also very helpful because that's learning about being the witness. And that's what happens in this course. That is what makes this course for me so brilliant because the doer can't do anything. But it all happens at the level of the mind and you don't even know it's happening. Every forgiveness exercise, doing the workbook, studying the lessons, taking the step back, having a holy instant, practicing the holy instant, being above the battleground, the quiet center, however you call it. All moments we are disengaging. We are no longer on the horizontal level, we've gone vertical. And every time we go vertical, we are disengaging with the identity, with the body, with the ego,
Mhm.
with that which is finite. We are disengaging with that. And that happens just, you don't even know it's happening because it's being transformed on the level of the mind. And it just happens. And it's wonderful.
Mhm.
And that makes this course so brilliant. Jesus is a brilliant teacher. Yeah. All
And
these things.
I was going to say, I love the horizontal and vertical metaphor because it's so easy on this horizontal level, which I think corresponds to the prison in the graphic behind me is basically thinking, well, there's some illusions that are better or worse than other illusions. But the equation I think that comes to mind is but from the course and Ken explains this so brilliantly that illusion A equals illusion B equals illusion C. So everything on this level is really the same, even though we want to make big deals out of the apparent differences between people and things and circumstances. And oh, that was a good time. Oh, that was the bad time. Oh, this is a good person. This is a bad person. And all those kind of distinctions really are just ways that we keep ourselves anchored to our dream identification, isn't aren't they? And then but the vertical is basically, you know, undoing the projection is basically the forgiveness. It says, wait a minute, if they're all the same,
Yeah.
I'm not upset for the reason I think, and I could see peace instead of this, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. And that's why I always do that with my hands and
Yeah.
my arms like this, that there is no cause in the dream. But we thought that cause and effect was here. So we were replacing one illusion with a different illusion.
Hmm.
And that's all.
Yeah.
We were just, oh, this dream is better than that dream. Well, we didn't know it was a dream, but it's like, well, my life was going perfectly until you came along, so I am going to trade you in for somebody else, you know? So we're always just one illusion for another illusion. And
Hmm.
when you realize that, you stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once the penny falls, you think, oh, wow, I have been falling into that trap for a long time. Stop.
Hmm.
Thank you for showing me that there's no cause in the dream.
Yeah.
The cause is always at the level of the mind. Thank you, Ken Wapnick, again.
Yes, yes. In lesson 182, there's a line that I think really helps. I have moved geographically around the western part of the United States a goodly handful of times. And every time I do, I try to remember this line that says, "A thousand homes he makes, and yet none contents his restless mind." Well, but as Ken Wapnick points out brilliantly, it's not just the physical abodes that he's talking about. It's our relationships with everyone and everything. That, if a partner isn't pleasing us, we think, well, maybe I'll swap this one out. Or if a job isn't doing what we want it to do for us, we think, oh, I'll quit and get another job. Or, but it's always a substitute. But no substitute for the peace of God will ever satisfy us, right?
Mm,
Nope.
beautiful, beautifully said,
Well,
yeah.
we've got about 4 minutes left. So anyway, we've covered a lot of ground, but I want to leave you enough time in the last 4 minutes to share anything that you'd like to leave with people in this initial conversation. And thank you so much, Mara, for for sharing what
Oh,
you've shared already.
this is
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, what would, yeah, I just love to share. That's, in the groups, people think always, they say, oh, you're such a good teacher. I said, no, I'm not a teacher. No, I just share. Um, I love this spirituality because it's a circle. There's no beginning and there's no end.
hmm
And teaching and learning is just the same. Whatever I share, I'm teaching it to myself because we're one together. I don't see us as separate anymore. We are one together. And so the groups are so healing and growing. And we were reading just a few weeks ago The Little Garden and planting our seeds of love and watching our garden grow now together in our Zoom groups. And that's just so beautiful. But what could I say in general? We can't do this alone. We need help from outside of the dream. If you don't have a relationship yet with your inner guide, whoever that might be for you, please start right now. It only takes 10 seconds. Oh, Jesus, Holy Spirit, be you in charge. Okay, I'll start right now. Yeah. Um, we can't do this alone because of that everything is happening at the level of the mind. And so we have misidentified with something that we thought was real, and it turns out that it's not, it's our dream. So I guess it's all the question of identification. And my last sentence would be please identify with love. That's it. Identify with love. That's who we are. The love as God created us, the beautiful spirit that we are.
That's it,
And
isn't it?
ask for help to do that.
Yes, yes, yes. The help is always there, isn't it? And it is just waiting patiently for us to
Yeah.
call upon it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to make a little comment. I've got about less, little about a minute left. I just wanted to say I always um, look forward to reading whatever you post on your Facebook page. You always put some wonderful quotes from Ken and course quotes that I find are just so perfect for the day when I take a few moments to read them. And your classes are wonderful. And so anyway, thank you for all that you do, and also for being with me here today. So
Yeah, thank you also. We're doing so much. We're all growing together. I
yes,
love those little illustrations. We're walking each other home. Yeah.
yep, 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 exactly. Well, thank you,
So
Myra,
thank you
and
for walking with me.
likewise, likewise.
Okay.
So anyway, thanks again, and I'll send
Stop the
you.
recording.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Thanks.